Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Think Tank Sports. Think Tank Sports, where we think and you listen. Check us out on the socials, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Listen to us on Spotify for podcasters or wherever you get your podcasts, and watch us on YouTube. And hey, if you're watching us on YouTube, holy cow, there's three people on the screen. What is that all about? Well, we'll get to that in a second. We're here to talk Major League Baseball, Yankees, power rankings, some Pittsburgh Pirates baseball. Holy cow, the first place Pirates, break them up right now. So we're going to do that. But first, Mike is one of the faces that you recognize on the screen. Mike, how the heck are you?
Doing really good, Dave. We'll skip the weather and dinner reports tonight and get right into baseball.
Nice.
An odd week for the Yankees with 2 off days. Crazy series with the Mets, a 2-game series, which and then to be off today on Thursday just doesn't make sense to me. But my
travel day from New York to Boston. It takes them 8 hours to do that
by horseback. But as you said, Dave, I thought my ears needed cleaning or something. The Pittsburgh Pirates are in first place in the National League Central. And so who do we have to bring on to talk about that exciting news and see if it'll last? Mr. Jared Barton. Jared, how you doing tonight, buddy?
Not too bad, Mike. Good to join you guys, and always good to come on the show.
Yeah, we love having you. Take us all the way back to before the season or spring training when O'Neill Cruz got hurt. And obviously he is the face of the franchise's future. Just a crazy athletic, huge potential, and gets hurt and is out. Is it the full season at this point, did they say?
Well, they haven't specifically said that.
Right, but they keep pushing it back.
Right. And so at this point, it's looking like he probably won't return to any sort of baseball related activities until August. So is there a chance that he potentially could sneak back in September? Maybe, but it's
maybe
looking
can DH
unlikely.
him late in the year.
Yeah, looking unlikely. But
so tell us.
Oh, go ahead.
What the attitude in Pittsburgh was coming into the season. A little bit of hope. It played well last year. In spots, young, obviously. But now, with Ke'Bryan Hayes and O'Neill Cruz, and they started to have an identity. Cutchin's back, all those things going into the season, and then Cruz gets hurt. So what was the attitude in Pittsburgh when that happened?
Well, I would say the attitude coming out of last season wasn't hopeful because it was a pretty bad end of the season. To the point where they were awarded the first round pick for this year's upcoming first player draft in July. So you can't say that last year was a success by any means, but O'Neill Cruz was a pretty bright light in what was a pretty dark team last year. So with that, yes, there was a lot of hope for him at the beginning of the season, and he looked like he was the O'Neill Cruz from what we saw last year in those first few games, but it didn't last long, right? It was the first series, if I'm not mistaken, when he ended up getting hurt sliding into home plate against the Chicago White Sox. So it was a brutal hit to take, no pun intended, when you go and lose your starting shortstop in the first week of the regular season. But
it was really an ugly slide. Not to cut you off. I wanted to blame the catcher, but it really was a bad slide.
And the catcher took a lot of heat because technically he's not allowed to block the plate anymore, the rules and whatever else. But you're right, it wasn't a good slide. And he's a young player. Understandable that he may make a mental mistake like that. But at the end of the day, you're not going to have him for a significant amount of time. So you had to go and try to, fill the void. And that may be one of the biggest issues with this team is they haven't really filled that void. There's been a few players rotating in. Tucupita Marcano is one of them, who was a trade acquisition from the LA Dodgers just a couple of years ago. I'm pretty sure
they know what they're doing.
Yeah, he came over in one of those deals from the West Coast. So Marcano, he shows at times offensively that he could be good, but his defense is pretty much just average at this point. So it's not exactly a long-term solution. At least I don't think so. You mentioned McCutchen. Obviously, everybody was excited to see him come back. He is revered as one of the premier and one of the nicest athletes to ever come through this city. So seeing a guy and he was interested in coming back too. It wasn't like this was the team reaching out to try to mend fences after trading him away to San Francisco a few years ago. He wanted to come back and he still wanted to play. His family's still here. He met his wife here. They have 2 kids and they still live in Pittsburgh. So obviously coming back and getting an opportunity to play in front of his family was huge. And he's done really well in the role that he's been cast. But the problem is, for the money they're paying him, you most likely wanted him to play more in the field. And he hasn't done that really at all this year. He's been pretty much a designated hitter the entire time, which is something that is okay. And he's done well. His on-base percentage is pretty awesome. His batting average is all right. But you needed him defensively, and he hasn't really seen the field much. So that could be problematic moving forward. Although I will say this, they had G-Man Choi, who was an international guy that they brought in the offseason. And he was supposed to platoon with Carlos Santana at first base. Well, Choi also got hurt early on. It was like the first week and a half of the season. So he's been out of the mix. And because of that, I think that's afforded McCutchen more of an opportunity to be a DH, because I think if Choi was in this lineup on a daily basis, he may be battling McCutchen for those DH spots. So
you said his name and I got instant flashbacks. He was such a Yankee killer on the Rays, Choi was. And originally a Yankee prospect, many years ago.
As they all are.
Yeah, right. But yeah, great left-handed bat that would have sucked up some DH time for sure.
Yeah, and I think that the challenge too with the DH role, and you'll see a lot of teams doing this, is using that spot to rotate people through and give them some rest in the field and whatnot. And you want McCutchen's bat in the lineup, but if he's in that DH spot every day, now you've got some other players, I think, like you've alluded to, Jared, playing more than maybe they should, and McCutchen. So you're trying to balance that out, and it's just a bad mix. Despite all of that, 34-32, they're just a 1-game lead there on the Brewers. But they have a huge series, Jared, coming up this weekend in Milwaukee. And the Brewers are on a slide, right? They've lost 6 in a row. Maybe what's the feel there? Is the feel like the Pirates can go in there, take 2 out of 3 and maybe try to put some distance between them and the Brewers?
Well, I'll say this. The feeling coming out of the weekend series with the Mets was a good one.
Right. They won 2 out of 3
from New York here at home was important. The Mets are what they are, right? That's a $300+ million roster that is not really panned out due to various issues, injuries being the biggest one. But taking 2 out of 3 there and getting the cart back on track after losing 2 to the Athletics before that, which the lowly Athletics somehow, some way were able to sweep the Brewers, which no one saw that coming.
No,
but either way, the hope is there that they can stay with this. But if you just watched over what has happened the last 2 nights,
right, losing to the Cubs,
Chicago, and look, they were in the games. The starting pitching has been fine, but as soon as they have to go to the bullpen, it all falls apart. So, they had a 5-1 lead yesterday, end up losing 11-8,
10-6,
whatever. Right.
Yep.
I think the 11-8 was in the day before,
the previous night. Yep.
Yeah. So you give up like 16+ runs from the bullpen alone in 2 games. That's not good. So
I got a 11-3 the game before. And
that's
and the only reason I'm bringing that up is because your boy Austin Hedges. Did you see what he did that game? He bat flips a home run earlier in the game, and then they proceed to go out and lose by 9 runs. And it's like the perfect microcosm of this organization, really, Although I don't think of the Pirates as showboaters, or usually they're classy and do the right thing. I'm all for showing excitement, but old man shouting at clouds, I could do without the bat flips. Okay.
I will say this, and I agree with you. Bat flips aren't necessary. I will say this, one thing that really has annoyed me in this season is the fact that you have not really played division opponents until now.
Right.
This is the first NL Central action that the Pirates have seen all season. For the most part, I think they had one mini series with the Cincinnati Reds, and that was it. I mean, before they hadn't played anybody else in the NL Central up until this point. It's been a lot of interleague, as everybody has seen, and then it's a lot of still in the NL, but not in their division. I don't like the way that has been set up, because you want to get some. I'm not saying you have to have all of your league games, all of your division games, like at the beginning of the season, but my goodness, to only have one NL Central series in the first 2 months of the year. I mean, that's something.
Yeah.
Well, and you look at the
Yankees
Yankees, right?
Yeah.
Their first series with the Red Sox was just last weekend.
Right.
They saw Toronto early, and then we don't see them again until August. So.
Right. And so, very, and I think obviously, for the folks that don't know, and I think Mike and I have talked about it, the adjustment to the schedule, and you've lost five games off, going from 18 to 13 in your division, so that you play everybody, which is great. But
I like that too. I'm for playing everybody.
But let's be a little more strategic about when these divisional games happen. And so you're not going, 2.5 months into the season before playing somebody.
Yeah. I was actually wrong. So they played Cincinnati twice. It was the opening series of the year, and then another one at the end of April. So you pretty much.
But they were mini series, right? 2 games.
Oh, actually, I was also wrong about that.
Oh.
It was 3 games to start the season, 4 games at the end of April. But you haven't seen a division opponent in how many weeks? 1, 2.
Right, you're talking about
3,
5
4,
weeks, 6 weeks,
5, 6, 7, 8 weeks.
Yeah,
haven't seen a division opponent in 8 weeks, which I just think is ridiculous.
Our tens of fans know we have our problems with the major league schedulers to begin with. My pet peeve, Jared, is Memorial Day and Labor Day are on Mondays, and inevitably there's a light schedule. There should be day games. Every major city, should have baseball as a celebration. People are off from work, they'll throw it on the radio, while they're at barbecues. It's a chance to showcase the game. And several years in a row now, the Yankees are either off or, it's just terrible job by Major League Baseball, to not capture those moments, in my opinion. But,
at least they have the 4th of July figured out. But You're right. Those other 2 holidays, they should be filled with games.
Right. No doubt. Jared, anything else? So we've kind of, beaten around the Pirates a little bit as far as who's not doing well. Who is doing well, right? You've got, Brian Reynolds is playing good. Mitch Keller is playing good. I was thinking there's 2 or 3 potential all-stars on that team. A little major league for you. Who's playing well right now?
Well, you mentioned 2 of them, and I'll start with Mitch Keller. Mitch Keller was probably one of the biggest question marks coming into this season for the Pirates. He has shown signs of being a guy who could hold up a rotation. And I think over the last couple of months, he's really shown that he is the number 1 guy. And there's now no question. And if he continues on this trajectory, he should be in the All-Star game with no question asked.
Yep.
We're seeing the best Mitch Keller ever throughout his time here. And he's had a lot of rough patches over the last few years. So to see him actually step in and really make a difference. They haven't won all of the games that he started, but they have come pretty close. And usually when he's on the mound, they have an opportunity to win. So he has been one of the biggest bright spots on the team. Brian Reynolds, on the other hand, man, he had no contract or no new contract at the beginning of the season, and asked for a trade before the season began, but ended up getting his contract, and he started the season red hot, kind of cooled off, but has come back around and is still a solid offensive piece to this Pirates puzzle. So great having him in the fold, and I'm glad it's going to be for multiple years, because you need to try to keep people like that. You can't just keep going and they play well and then they're automatically, like you said, dealt away, or they leave on their own terms. So it's good to see that he's locked in, and I think he's happy, because ultimately he didn't want to leave. He enjoys the atmosphere here and enjoys what he has here, because he's now started a family. He has at least one kid.
Mm-hmm.
And it's good to have him in the fold. Brian Hayes has been a disappointment offensively. His defensive skills are pretty much spot on all the time. Offensively, yeah, he did have a 5-hit game this past week, but before that, I mean, we're talking like 1 or 2 home runs to start the season. You need more out of your third baseman than just a couple of home runs in the first few months. So if he can figure out his offensive issues to be more consistent, he could be another very important piece of the puzzle moving forward. Some other players that, in my opinion, have outperformed what I expected. Carlos Santana, obviously a player who's been around for a long time, started out pretty good offensively this year, and he's been solid. He's pretty much been the daily first baseman for this team. Has he had his cold stretches? Yes, but he at least is something of an offensive threat in the heart of the lineup, which is pretty much all you can ask for. You need him to be a 3 or 4 hitter for a team like this. Connor Joe is a guy who's been around. He was in the Pirates organization before getting dealt to Colorado and eventually made his way back here. He is fun to watch. When he makes contact with the ball, he's fun to watch. Defensively, it's pretty much average. And I would say the other big offensive threat is Jack Sawinski. Now, he strikes out a lot. He is way more than I would like. Adam Dunn.
Listen, you're talking to Yankee fans. We know about strikeouts.
Right. So very Adam Dunn-esque. He has the same sort of body frame where he's a big guy and he has a lot of power, but he's going to strike out at least once a game, it seems, and sometimes more. But when he is on, he's very, very good, and he's pretty solid in the outfield so far. So those are the team, or the players on this team, that have really stood out. They had hot pitching at the beginning, and I think that's why they went on such a run in the month of April.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, their starting pitching was tremendous. Yeah.
Right, and then the starting pitching started getting hurt, and because of that, they had a really, really bad May, as everybody saw. Yeah, and they've sort of righted the ship here in the month of June so far. But that rotation, and in the injured state that it is, on top of a very, very bad bullpen, is not going to end well. And then I will say this: there is a bright spot in the bullpen, and it's your setup and your closer. David Bednar could potentially be one of the best closers in the league. We haven't had to see him a lot lately, but I would think that should be in the running for an all-star bid as well this year. And then Colin Holderman, who is also another trade acquisition from the New York Mets, has played as good as he can. Now, he went on the IL today with wrist inflammation.
Oh, that's not good.
At least 15 days, which is not ideal at this time.
No.
At the end of the day, they have way more big problems in that bullpen. And until they get something figured out with their bullpen, they're going to have a lot of problems. And that's why I go back to Dave's original point. Is there excitement? Like, what's the feeling of what's going on here? Well, I think they feel that 2/5 of their starting rotation can get the job done, but then the back end of the rotation and the bullpen are going to be big questions that are going to probably hamper them. And all I say is look out for Milwaukee, because we've seen this game play out before. Yeah, you have a big series. You were talking about it coming up this weekend with Milwaukee, and if they can't win at least 2 there, look out, because if they get swept here by Chicago tonight, plus lose 2 out of 3 or 3 out of 3 to Milwaukee, they are going to be in some big trouble.
It's a weird setup in the division now, because the Cardinals are at the bottom when, they always lurk around. The Cubs I guess they're 5.5 back, but you're not expecting much out of them this season. They're still rebuilding, even though they, had a decent offseason with Dansby Swanson and those guys. But the Brewers are really a disappointment to me personally. I've followed them a couple of years now, as kind of like my National League team almost. And they can never put the hitting and the pitching together. Like one year their lineup's stacked and they're bombing home runs. And the next year, they can't score a run, but they're striking everybody out.
Yep.
Very frustrating, very un-Brewer like.
Yeah.
But talk about, so generally there's a positive attitude and things are going well. What role does the manager, Derek Shelton, play in that? What's his demeanor? Is he a player's coach? I don't know a lot about his coaching style. I know he's been around a while. I certainly am aware of his name. And, when he got hired as a baseball guy, but tell us real quickly what Derek Shelton's like, positives or negatives.
Well, I mean, there are a lot of positives, I think, that come out of the Pirates clubhouse surrounding his name. And if there wasn't, I don't think that he would have gotten the extension that was given to him at the beginning of this season. Now, a lot of people here think that extension probably was maybe not,
Premature.
Maybe not earned, I guess is the way to say it. Not that he has done horribly, but there are times where he blatantly messes up. There's managerial decisions that go and screw them out of wins. And we saw it a lot last year, and we're still seeing it happen this year. So it's not like everything's all peachy with him, but he's a good guy. He says the right things, and he was thrown into an almost impossible situation dating back to 2020. What are you going to do?
Rough way to take over in the pandemic.
Correct. Taking over right around 2020, dealing with a very, very small payroll and trying to not only win at the major league level, but also make sure that you're developing players the way you need to develop players. So I'm not going to go and say that all of his faults are self-inflicted, even though I think some of them are at times. He's done okay, but he's a nice enough guy. And I think the players do respect him in that clubhouse. So there's a lot to be said with that.
Excellent. Anything else on the Pirates, Dave, or we want to go knee deep into our power rankings?
Yeah, I think that, it's a lot of good stuff. I think the challenge with the Pirates, players don't want to go there, right? You talk about the issues with the bullpen. You'd love to say, hey, Pittsburgh can go out at the trade deadline and get some people to beef up the bullpen. But, that's the hard part, I think, with Pittsburgh is there's just not that draw to the free agents or the trades. Cause then you could be like, okay, we can, we know our bullpen is, as Jared is saying, one of our biggest weaknesses. Let's try to strengthen that a little bit. Trade deadline or whatnot. And that I'm not sure that that's going to be an avenue for the Pirates.
Well, and the local talk around the area over the past week is, well, they're going to be are they going to be buyers or sellers at the deadline? I mean, right now they're in first place. So you kind of have to go and see if it's going to be see if it's going to happen. And I just don't know. I think it's too early to be going and saying anything about, being buyers or sellers right now. It just, there's too much to figure out. Let the next few weeks play out, and that will tell you whether or not they should be worrying about any sort of trade deadline acquisitions. Right now, I think it's way too early especially with the deadline being all the way at the end of July. It's not like it's next at the beginning of the month.
Right.
We're looking 5-6 weeks away still, and a lot can change. Obviously, a lot can change in that amount of time.
Yeah. And it's interesting, I think, with the trade deadline, because you look at, two big market teams that have already been talked about nationally have been the Red Sox and the Mets. And are they going to be, so it's this big market already. And maybe that's what's driving some of that early conversation as far as that goes. But it'll be interesting to see. We will definitely keep our eyes on the Pirates. and see how things go. Looking forward again to this series with the Brewers this weekend, and let's hope for some close competitive games. And the Pirates get a chance to see kind of what they're made of in some big moments. Hopefully they can think back to the Mets series and try to draw some stuff in. Mike, we kind of hit on the Yankees a little bit. They had the 2 games here with the Mets at Citi Field. Very, what I would say now, of course, I don't get to watch a lot of the games, but the fact that it was on TBS and ESPN these 2 nights, got to watch a lot of this. Very compelling, tons of, great storylines, 2 one-run games. Just, lots of really, really good, the crowd was into it. Last night, IKF steals home late in the game. Crowd is just going crazy. Just a lot of, again, just a lot of like big kind of baseball things. You saw a lot of pitching changes. Obviously you saw Drew Smith comes in the first game and got some sticky stuff, or Michael Pineda, whatever you want to say there, and gets thrown out before even throwing a pitch. So, this is the first time I've seen it this year, the shift violation. Last night, where you have
McNeil was
straddling the bag, and his right foot is on the shortstop side. And, Bill Miller, there were some strike calls that were not so good last night, but somehow, some way that guy can see 120 feet away that Jeff McNeil is
get off the blue
to the right or to the left there of second base. Mike, go ahead.
One of the untold stories of the season is the pressure on the home plate umpire now, with obviously the automated strike zone coming, but having to keep an eye on the clock. I know they have a buzzer that tells them if there's a violation. I get that.
Yep.
But still, you got to pay attention to all that, the violations on the shift. And now, you're also calling balls and strikes from these incredible major league pitchers. So yeah. I just think there's a lot of pressure on the umpiring crew more than previous years. That being said, I was shocked they made that call. I was shocked Showalter didn't get thrown out, to be honest with you. If I was the manager, Buck Showalter knows more about baseball than I have ever had in my pinky. So I'm not saying second guessing him, but I'm surprised he didn't get tossed. But,
and I was surprised he wasn't more adamant. I kind of expected to see.
You can't argue. The guy was straddling.
No, I know, but we're not expecting an Aaron Boone display. Right. But I thought it was interesting. I thought Buck would be a little more fired up, and it didn't. He just looked like he was having a conversation. And maybe he did that because he knew he might get tossed. I don't know.
I'll say this, not that I, have paid attention to that series really too closely, but Buck Showalter was here in town over the past weekend.
Right.
And he's a guy that, in my opinion, we got to listen into one of his press conferences, was just living life. He was talking about Sunday morning. He was talking about the Unabomber dying instead of the game out on the field. So I think he is, not that he's checked out. I mean, he cares. That's not the question, but he's relaxed. He's happy in his position, and whatever goes,
he's enjoying the heck out of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Because he's in a new position. He's in a job where he knows eventually, as long as he can, get healthy and have everything go his way, we'll have a competitive club in his hands. So I
think there's an element too where this has to be his last shot, right? I mean, because of his age, if they do terrible and he gets fired, no one's gonna, hire him again for a retread. If they do great and he wins a couple championships and he's around a decade and he goes off into the sunset, I think either way, he knows this is it. Couldn't have a better owner as far as spending money and willingness to do whatever that way. So he's just, like you said, just living life, enjoying it. And having a good time. But
Yeah, because I mean, were you expecting him to get another job? I don't know
No.
if I was.
No.
I mean, you know, let's say you could say the same thing with Dusty Baker in Houston. You
Right.
know, were you expecting him to get another job? And then he ends up going and winning another World Series. So
how about my boy Bruce
And
Bochy
Bruce
in
Bochy in
Texas? Oh
Texas,
my
that's
goodness.
definitely,
Yeah.
you think about all of these. I mean, Bruce Bochy's got, multiple titles. Like, what does he have left to prove? I mean, obviously, look what he's doing with Texas, and we'll get to our power rankings, but he's definitely a guy I don't think anybody thought was going to come out of retirement and get back,
Yeah.
throw his hat back in the ring.
No, but as far as the Yankees go, just to put a bow on this, Dave, continue to battle. Honestly, it looks like a split squad spring training game out there some days.
Yeah.
You get Bowers and Wright, and he really, if Judge was in, or even, maybe IKF or somebody, maybe he catches that ball off the wall that scored the winning run for the Mets. But but he's playing serviceably. McKinney. I mean, it's just crazy the lineups we have to put out there some nights. And now with Judge out, it's just, we knew we were going to miss him, but it's just glaring at this point. So, and it kind of sucks. You got big boppers all around the league out. Judge is out, Alonso's out, Jordan Alvarez is out in Houston.
Yep. Just found that out yesterday. He's got that oblique strain. He's out at least 4 weeks. So it's pushing up, close to the All-Star break. And Houston obviously has been playing very well too. All
right, let's get to the power rankings. So
let's get to it. So typically we start at 10 and work our way up there, Jared. For me, and let's see, last week I had them at 9. This week I have the Miami Marlins at 10. Still playing decent at 38 and 31. Minus 30 though, with the run differential challenging. But I did see this today. It's their best start since 1997. They won the World Series that year, by the way.
Dave, I have them at 10 as well, so I'm going to jump in. I'll give you another stat. The minus 30 differential is probably because of this. They're 17-5 in 1-run ball games. And that's just an incredible percentage of winning there in close games. Can they keep that up all season? Probably not. One of the best teams, in 1-1 ball games was the 2012 Baltimore Orioles, who certainly didn't win anything, and they ended up 29-9 in one-run games for that season. So, I was commenting earlier that it's tough to find people to put in the 10 and the 9 spot, but I have the Miami Marlins there also, Dave. Jared, what say you?
Yeah, I like Miami, but I have them, just to go and be a little bit different, I have them out. Again, if you talk to, or you go back to our conversation, I should say, I think that Milwaukee will figure it out. So I think I have the Brewers in at 10. And this may be a little premature, and especially coming off of the 6-game losing skid that they have. They have the night off tonight. But if they have a big weekend, I think they will venture their way into a lot of top 10s.
Yeah, and that's usually where I have them this season. And because of the losing streak, I just bumped them out for Miami.
Sure.
Yeah, it's
David?
interesting. And that's been, Mike and I have gone back and forth this year about the record versus the potential, right? So early on, when the Astros were not doing all that great, Mike still had them in the top 10. And I said, I just can't, because they're not their record and they're not playing well. So we've gone back and forth on that. At number 9, I have the Toronto Blue Jays at 38 and 31, 38 and 32 now, as they lost to the Orioles today, 4-2. With a plus 20 now run differential. They're still playing well. You'd like to see, I think for them, Alek Manoah's, absolute just complete collapse is of note. And how does he rebound? Do they get him back? But their lineup is just tremendous with Bo Bichette. Likely it could be one of the starters in the All-Star game. So I have Toronto at 9.
I have the aforementioned I want to make sure I get this right. I'm double checking, gentlemen. Houston Astros. Big slide for me. First time this year I've had them below the Yankees because of what they've done to the Yankees in the postseason. I have to go over the top in praising them because they own us. This is the bottom line. I hate it, but don't like it. But that's just the way it is, reality. But I have them down all the way to 9, and their offense just is not the same right now. And then with Alvarez's injury that we talked about, I just couldn't put them any higher. Jared, what say you?
Well, coming on to this, I was debating between Toronto and New York for that 9 spot, and decided to I'll go New York just to be a little bit different because I feel as though that maybe some on this program may have had them up a little bit higher. So I didn't want to go and
there's 2 New York teams, Jared.
Well, of course. But I didn't want to go but hopefully my some of these picks are going to be a little bit different, and they have been already. So I'll go the Yankees in at number 9 for me.
All right.
And I that may be off-putting to some, but I've seen Toronto play. I haven't seen New York play in person. I've seen Toronto play in person this year, and they're pretty fun to watch, and they're pretty intense offensively. So I liked what I saw from them in the series when they were here early in the year in Pittsburgh, and I feel as though we'll roll with them. For me, they come just ahead, but we'll get to number 8 when we get to number 8.
Yeah. And so, we've talked to Jared a few times here on the podcast, but Jared covers sports for a living in Pittsburgh. So he's saying, hey, I've seen them play. Like he's been there in the action. So we hold Jared's opinion highly here at Think Tank Sports. So we appreciate that. At number 8 for me, I have the Los Angeles Dodgers at 38-30. Plus 62 in the run differential. They've struggled a bit. They lost 2 out of 3 from the Yankees, and they kind of haven't really rebounded here. 3-7 in their last 10. I think what's interesting here is 17-19 on the road for the Dodgers. And this has obviously been a team that's been very successful the last few years. So I have the Dodgers at 8. Mike, what do you have at 8?
I have the Toronto Blue Jays at 8 for all the reasons you said. I will say that I do respect Jared's opinion, Dave, but your opinion does not necessarily reflect that of management at Think Tank Sports. So I just want to put that disclaimer out there. Unless you think you could speak for us in the future. No.
Oof, wow, management divided here at Think Tank Sports. Jared, help us out here. What do you have at 8?
At 8, I did have Toronto, so I'm going with Mike in this one. And like I said, for all the reasons that I mentioned on the last pick, I feel as though Toronto was good enough for number 8.
All right. As we move to 7, I have our New York Yankees, Mike, at 7 with the plus 43 run differential, 39-30 on the season, 5-5 in their last 10. Again, the struggles without Judge. But they have some big boppers. They need to get their act together. We will see some similar pitching matchups this weekend in Boston at Fenway. So got to hope here that the Yankees will put some things together a little bit, maybe win 2 out of 3, which would be nice after losing 2 out of 3 in New York. Mike, who do you have at number 7?
I have Jeremy's Los Angeles Dodgers at number 7.
Okay.
It'll be interesting to see what goes on with them at the trade deadline. They're up against a luxury tax. If they do go out and make some trades and have to eat some salary, which is generally how that works, it'll be interesting to see if they're willing to go over the threshold. And if they do, then might as well go get everybody, which they usually do anyway. But Kershaw continues to find the fountain of youth. The lineup is stacked. They haven't been as good lately as they had early in the year, but the Dodgers will be talking about them the rest of the season for sure. Jared?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm going with you again, Mike. Dodgers in it at number 7 for me. It's a rotation that has had problems this year, health-wise. But you mentioned it. It's a roster when you have an unlimited amount of money to spend, or seemingly unlimited amount of money to spend. You're probably going to be in a good spot throughout the year, no matter what. And you mentioned it, Dave. Trade deadline situations are going to be pretty interesting. And this team, just like it is every year, we'll be looking to retool and potentially go and try to get back to the top of the NL West.
Absolutely.
Yep. Sounds good. So as we move to number 6, that's where I have the Houston Astros at 6, 39-29, the plus 61 run differential. And I think most importantly, for you guys, Mike and Jared, 248 runs allowed is the lowest in Major League Baseball. So they may be, struggling a little bit, but their pitching continues to dominate. And ultimately, that's something that's going to carry them all the way through. So I have the Astros at 6. Mike, what say you?
New York Yankees. I won't waste any time. Did you guys see the John Sterling video of the fall ball?
Oh yeah.
I love the man. I laughed so hard, inappropriately laughed so hard. Sent it to my wife. Of course, she was typically sympathetic, and I was not. That sucked. He's had a rough year. I'm guessing this is probably his last year. He's a caricature of himself anyway.
Yeah.
Which I hate to see. 84 years old or whatever it is.
Yeah, 84. Yep.
Take his compañero Susan Waldman and walk out that door. Would be fine with me. That's my Yankee talk for number 6.
Hilarious that John was pretty much just, what do you want to call it? Saying, and that one's
right.
Lost foul. Not making any mention that it's like coming right towards him. And then all of a sudden,
he had his head down.
Right. Enters the frame and just clonks him after making contact with the table or something beforehand. He took it like a champ, though. I will say that. 84 years old. I don't know if I am lucky enough to make it to the age of 84. I don't know if I'm taking a baseball off the head like that and being okay. Maybe he just.
We don't know the long-term ramifications of what happened. Yeah.
Either way.
No, we don't. And he missed 23 games. So he's just been back. So we'll see. But Jared, who do you have at 6?
I'm copying you, Dave. I thought I was going to go and potentially have some teams in different spots, but I'm going 6 with the Astros. I'm reading the wrong line. Houston Astros at 6. It's another team that I got to see in person this year at the beginning of the season, first few weeks. And man, were they fun to watch. And it's with some names that, they're notable, but not to people like me, because before I wasn't seeing AL teams, coming in there as often as they were. It was a lot of fun to watch their pitching and their some of their big stars offensively.
Yeah, absolutely. So real quick, in the bottom 5 of our top 10, we all have Save the Brewers, the same teams in different order. If I'm not mistaken, I didn't write them down, but I'm pretty sure
Yankees, Dodgers, Toronto, Houston. Yankees, Dodgers, Toronto, Houston. Yes. I have Miami. Mike has Miami. Jared has Milwaukee. But yes, 4 of the 5 are all the same teams.
I'm going to guess the top 5 are too, but
we'll just see what order they are here. For me, at number 5, I have the Baltimore Orioles, 42-25, plus 41. They just continue to play well, very balanced, 22-13 at home, 21-12 on the road, 7-3 in their last 10, winning against Toronto. The Orioles are just playing very well and, capitalizing on that season they had last year. And that Bautista guy, who's the closer, is just he's just out of this freaking world. So scary is good terms. Mike, who do you have at 5?
At 5, I have the Arizona Diamondbacks, Dave.
Okay.
Corbin Carroll is all that he was billed for there in center. I think Zach Gallen's probably the Cy Young front runner right now. And they're just plugging along and beating everybody they're supposed to, and then they're winning the games, or they're winning series against the better teams, and I think They're young for sure. They're probably ahead on their overall progress. They're probably a year ahead of where
Sure.
they thought they'd be. But the Arizona Diamondbacks, I think, are going to be around this season for a while, and so that's who I have at 5.
Copying you, Mike, going with Arizona
my
there,
goodness.
and 3-game lead on LA right now in the NL West. A lot to change. Obviously, we've talked about that, but that's a pretty significant.
Look out for the Giants hanging around in that West too.
Yep.
Okay.
They've won 4 in a row here, and the
Yeah.
Giants are only 4.5 back at 36 and 32, but they're not quite ready to make the top 10 power rankings here at Think Tank Sports, but that's okay. They're hanging around and doing better
than number 1 pick.
Better than they did last year. So for me at number 4, I have the Diamondbacks for all the reasons that both of you alluded to at number 5. I have them at 4. Mike, who do you have at 4?
I have the Baltimore Orioles at 4. Gunnar Henderson, boys, 21 years old, and seems like he's already got it figured out. 7 games here in June. He is hitting .458, a double, 4 homers, and 7 RBIs. Good start to June for sure. You put him against Rushman, and all these guys, young players that they have, Santander, all those players.
Austin
really
Hayes is another one. He's good. Got to see some of them last night.
Aaron Hicks.
Oh, please, whatever.
Hicks to the sticks.
It won't last, folks. Everybody's like, oh, he's doing great. There's no pressure on him. Once he gets a few more at bats, so watch that batting average go right down to the bottom.
Jared, what say you?
Once again, another copy. Baltimore there, young and up and coming.
Copycat.
What I got to say to that's pretty much been my middle name here
4
throughout the power rankings. But Baltimore there, with
I should have had you go first, and I could have done the copycat.
Yeah. Oh, very funny. So at number 3 for me, I have the Atlanta Braves at 42 and 26. The plus 72 run differential, 8-2 in their last 10. The sparkling 22 and 11 record on the road. As we've talked about, they have done quite well. So Atlanta Braves at 3. Acuna's having a great year. Rosario has big hits. Atlanta Braves at 3. Mike?
Spencer Strider has been awesome. Great pitching staff. I have them at 3 as well. Just an incredible organization. I thought they really bungled the Freddie Freeman thing, and yet they continue to just replenish and restock. And they're 17-6 against the rest of the National League East. So they have not only a lead in the division, but against division opponents, the opposite of what we said earlier about the schedule. They've seen all those division opponents already. So Braves are contenders, and nothing more to say. Jared?
Atlanta with me as well. Plus 72 differential right now isn't the greatest if you look around the league, but it's getting the job done in what has been a very topsy-turvy NL East. Because I don't think a lot of people thought that. I think they thought that Atlanta was for real, but obviously a lot of people had the Mets much higher than they are right now.
I'd like to make a suggestion, gentlemen. Jared, why don't you go first and tell us that you have the Texas Rangers at 2?
Well, yes. So which means that I would say all 3 of us probably have the 2 and 1 at the same.
Well, how can you dispute 1? I mean,
right.
There's nothing to say. I hate him. Kevin Cash, I'd like to punch him. I'm not a violent person. I'm a lover, not a fighter. Everyone knows that about me. That's established. But Kevin Cash, I'll send him a strongly worded memo someday.
Yes. Yeah, please do that. Agreed. Texas at 2, Tampa at 1. Tampa won game number 50 today against the Oakland A's. They are 50 and 22 with the run differential plus 142. The only team better is the Rangers, who we mentioned it too, is plus 145. They struggled a little bit.
Record paces by a lot, shattering run differential records.
Yeah. And Tampa, hit that rough stretch there. for a little bit, but now they've corrected. Yeah. What did they do? They were like 5-5 in 10 games or something, but now 7-3, they've won 2 in a row. They extend their lead out to 5 games over Baltimore. They're doing great. They're number 2 in the league in runs scored behind the Rangers. What can you say? They hit home runs, they steal bases, they pitch well. I mean, Tampa's doing everything that you need to do right now to be the top team in baseball.
Rangers have a deep offense, questions with pitching, but they're still getting the job done. And Tampa, they have it all going. Seeing my boy Tyler Glasnow stepping back into the spotlight has been good and bad. Of course, you want to see people who were on your team in previous times do well for the most part.
Was he on the same team with Cole and
Charlie Morton?
Yeah, there's one more. Tyone, Jameson Tyone.
Yes.
Or Tyone was a little later, right?
Well, I mean, yeah, but Cole crossed with all of them.
Yes,
right,
for sure. And Tyone definitely was there with Glasnow.
Well, they showed video of Cole and
last night,
the Astros, and then they went back and showed Cole with the Pirates.
Yeah, I think it was from 2015, I believe. Yeah, the long hair, but he's still, in the dugout, upset, fired up, still that same, that same kind of, demeanor that he has. So, very, very interesting. So on this podcast, Mike often calls me Double Dip Dave because I have 2 degrees from Syracuse and all this other stuff. Well, today I'm going to Triple Dip Dave and going back. And I've been meaning to do this for weeks. My friend Dan, who's an avid listener, has continued to feed me information on 2 Columbia High School, where I went to high school there in East Greenbush, New York. Shout out to all you Columbia folks that are listening. Dan is probably the only one.
All one of you.
Thank you. 2 players that are doing really well in baseball right now. Kevin Smith with the A's as they, try to surge out of that, worst record in the league. And they actually have
the Royals got him on the run. Yeah,
the Royals have him on the run as they've lost 9 in a row. Kevin Smith is the top prospect for the A's. He's been playing well. If you haven't seen this video from earlier in the week, he hits a big home run, and they have Thor's hammer. Like a lot of these teams have a thing that they give, there's a belt or a necklace or something or whatever. And so they show Kevin Smith in the dugout, and he's got Thor's hammer, and he goes like this, and the whole top of the hammer comes off and just disappears, and the look on his face and his teammates. But shout out to Kevin Smith. And then in the Yankees organization, Danny Watson is pitching in Double-A Somerset, has not allowed a run since April 30th in 19 straight innings. So just wanted to get some shout outs.
Danny Watson went also to Columbia?
To Columbia, yes. They are both Columbia High School graduates. And so Double Dip becomes Triple Dip. So we will continue I will continue to follow those folks and try to promote them. But I've been missing that for weeks. So I had to get that in today.
Great to get the local talent. My Shenandoah graduate connection with Ian Anderson of the Braves, who is Tommy John rehab, and Kevin Herter.
And Kevin Herter with the Hawks,
Kings.
Right?
Well,
Kings. Oh, that's right. He went to the Kings. Yes, we talked about him quite a bit.
Yeah. So, but again, just the local flavor is always nice, especially in the Northeast where the baseball season. If you get to double-digit games, you had a good weather season in high school, anyway. Obviously.
Yep.
To see these kids, make it out from that and have success. I know Kevin Herter's like the punchline for the quintessential white guy in the NBA, but guess what? He got paid, and he's a very good basketball player.
Yeah, he's not
He's not going to carry a team. He's not going to be a superstar, but you'd 6-7 man all day.
Yeah, no, he's been great. Oh, and let me just throw this last piece in as far as Columbia High School baseball goes. They won the Class A New York State Championship this week. There was actually a parade today, this week in East Greenbush as they came back. Class A state champions, your Columbia High School Blue Devils, folks.
Dave, I'm not trying to big dick you on your own podcast here, but the Shenandoah Plainsmen won the Class AA, thank you very much, state high school baseball championship yesterday. So bigger schools, better quality ball. I don't know. You tell me.
And so for those of you that are not familiar with Section 2 athletics in New York State.
And why would you be?
And why would you be unless you follow this podcast? Columbia and Shenandoah are bitter rivals.
It's Albany and Clifton Park,
right. It's you know, they've battled each other for years in all of the major sports. When I was in high school, those games, you know, like Yankees, Red Sox took on a game, you know, their own meaning. And
we went to your piece of crap school when Greg Kubek was playing and getting recruited by Duke and every other ACC team when I was a junior, and you couldn't breathe in there because it was so packed. It was such a big rivalry to begin with, and then the national attention for recruit and you guys gave us all we could handle and then some.
I did see my senior year. I did see Columbia beat Shenandoah twice. Once in the regular season and once in the sectional semifinals. As far as it goes. So we have delved way out, not to rub it in at all, but we beat your ass twice that year. So we've gotten way off the rails here, but you understand where some of the roots are. Been a great time talking baseball here. We love Jared. We love having you on. You bring such a great perspective. We love talking about Pittsburgh. It's June. Football is coming up soon. Jared's was at what he dubbed prior to us coming on, a very boring Steelers mini camp this week, but we look forward, Jared, to bringing you back on when football gets going and hearing predictions on a Steelers team that, you know, might have a chance to sniff the playoffs. But we really appreciate you coming on and giving us your perspective.
If we get a Pirates Yankees World Series, we're going to have to do something special. Just saying, I'll figure that out.
Oh yeah,
you know they want. I wonder if you could bet that future what the odds would be.
Oh, I'm sure you could. Yeah. You could bet anything.
You're right. That's fair.
Don't put any money on the Pirates being there.
Yeah.
I interrupted you on your wrap up, Dave.
No, you never know. But again, we appreciate you, Jared, coming on and sharing your perspective. This has been great. We love talking baseball. And so check us out, folks, on the socials and your podcast delivery systems. When we post this up, we'll tag Jared on there. So if you want to connect with Jared on the socials, please feel free to do that. He's very engaging and knowledgeable, and a Syracuse grad himself, wearing orange tonight just for the fun of it. So we're going to rub that Syracuse stuff right on in till the very end here at Think Tank Sports, where we think and you listen as we strive for 5. Have a good night, everybody.